incredible to have, I have to say I'm still moved just even from the energy and the commitment of Eurydice this afternoon, which was just already, we're in the thick of it, everybody. So if you are yet to see additional shows, one, stick around for Diva, A Survivor's Tale, which is at 5:45, so you get a little bit of break after Natalie's piece. And then tomorrow you can see all 3 solo performances, really pretty amazing. 1 o'clock, 2:15, 3:30. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. It has been moving to see everybody speak, perform, and create with such contagious enthusiasm. And I'll say that has been one of the joys of getting to know and work with Natalie Boles. So you'll see some of the fruit of her labor with her particular piece this afternoon. First, though, please take a moment to take out your cell phones. Do it. And please take a moment just to turn them off. I know you've heard this before, but it really is amazing when you know that it's not going to vibrate, when you know that it's not going to make a noise or light up. There's something really incredible about giving yourself that permission to engage and giving one another that permission. So do that. Also, just in case there's an emergency, there are exits on either side of the space. You came in through one of them. And there are also exits either side up there. So with that, I hope you enjoy the work of Natalie Boles.
Take a second and think back to when you were a kid. Who was your best friend? Who were the kids in your 3rd grade class? Were they different from you in some way? Now flash forward to your life today. Do you work with people who are different from you? Theater has the power to bring these kinds of memories back to life. A play called Doing the Right Thing, written in the late 90s, does just that, following the journey of a girl who learns how to combat bullies and learns about sexuality exploration and activism, all in the span of a short scene. Now, bullying and learning about sexuality seem like big topics, right? Well, Doing the Right Thing uses its performance platform, written for kids, to talk about things that are actually quite common, from stigma to self-exploration and standing up for others. It constantly uses simpler language to create a dialogue between the characters, ensuring that any audience member can understand what's happening on stage and learn something from a new point of view. I've always been the type to be naturally curious, especially as a kid. This spirit has served me well in steering me towards my 2 passions, theater and working with children. To me, there's nothing more infectious and heartwarming than the sound of children laughing and sharing a story. And whenever I work with kids, I'm brought back to when I was younger and got as excited as they do about every little thing. Children have this boundless energy that allows them to shoot for the stars, no matter their dreams. And thinking about that instinct led me to think about how I could bridge the gap between my 2 passions. And that led me to Theater for Young Audiences, or TYA. TYA is both a genre and a style of theater aimed at producing work for young audiences, typically those under the age of 18. Now, because TYA can take on so many forms, I want to clarify the type of theater I'll be talking about to give you a better idea. I see the merits in children being involved in theater in any way. But today, I aim to focus my energies on emphasizing the importance of children being audience members and using theater as a catalyst to help them learn something new about the world around them. I like to think of theater as having 3 purposes: to educate, to entertain, and to encourage. The best teaching tools are not only those that provide information, but those that allow people to do something with what they learn. The theater is the ultimate playground and think tank, especially where children are concerned. Theater should be a blank slate, Like this black box, I see theater as a medium of endless possibilities. However, many TYA groups are still putting on work that has been done over and over again, such as stories of well-known fairy tales. While this type of work sells on the entertain aspect of theater, it can sometimes lack the true educate and encourage factors that really give theater its punch. TYA has the ability to utilize society's youngest members to make a difference. So if they were to put on programming about relevant social issues, or even about plays about children and the tough parts of growing up, children could begin to get educational values out of the things that they see. And once they start to learn something from another point of view, or start to learn new information, there's nothing to say that they can't share that information with others they meet down the road. The encourage idea also comes from the fact that theater helps invoke empathy, especially into children. And by seeing theater, children can begin to learn things from others' perspective and be able to gain common ground with those that they meet. I've always agreed with the mentality that when you were a child, you were like a sponge. You were amazing at soaking up everything you did and saw around you. You just might have processed it in a more unfiltered way, a more natural way than someone older might. And that is best served by theater because it can display the rawest, most honest emotions and events in a person's life. The theater is a safe space because of all of the perspectives that can be brought into the theater space. And creating meaningful theater stems from the ability to understand and internalize other people's points of view. And once that happens, children can be exposed to topics that they may not be frequently talked to about, such as sex, or death, or gender, just to name a few. And then they can begin to get a different outlook on how they see the world. Especially in a time where difficult topics are being brought up in news headlines daily, TYA should be somewhere for children to process, somewhere for them to talk about what they're seeing around them. As someone who wants to go into theater education, I believe that children should be utilized for their assets, including in their abilities to make independent decisions. If TYA wants to be as effective as possible, it needs to be putting its focus back on the youth themselves. Because of the nature of the commercial theater world as a business, a lot of the discussion about what should be put into production seasons goes towards the idea, what will parents, teachers, and other caregivers take their children to see? And due to this fact, much of the influence and power in TYA is still on adults, aka the ticket buyers. The more that TYA can reach children first and include them in the process from the start, the better chance there is that they can shift in a more positive direction. While children may not always have the power to physically obtain tickets themselves, they do have the power of voice. As Shakespeare wrote, though they be but little, they are fierce. Now, I may be paraphrasing a little bit, but the sentiment still holds completely true when thinking of the capabilities and possibilities that come from trusting children and allowing them to voice their opinions and make independent decisions. If TYA wants to stay as effective as possible, it needs to stay as up-to-date as possible with the ways of life in the communities it serves. In the US, children today growing up today, don't know a world without certain technologies, whether it be television or cell phones or even social media. And these mediums are effective ways of reaching young people, whether they see a commercial on their favorite TV channel or they see a link while they're surfing the web. The more places that TYA can reach children first, the better chance there is that they can reach the most diverse group of children possible. TYA should also be a place for children to push back, to react to the world around them, to challenge what they see happening outside their front door. A theater group that has exemplified all of the work that I've been emphasizing is called Fringe Benefits. Fringe Benefits is great on the surface for a few reasons. Not only do they put on TYA work in its most literal form, all of their work is done specifically for young audiences, but they do theater in the most effective way, collaboratively, using the voices of people from all walks of life, whether it's different socioeconomic, racial, or ethnic backgrounds. But so too do they use the voices of children. Many of their works are written collaboratively with children themselves, ensuring that children in the audience are seeing work that identifies with them as children. To date, the work of theirs that has made the biggest splash is called Cootie Shots, theatrical inoculations against bigotry for kids, parents, and teachers. The first tab on Fringe Benefits' website is titled Why Teach Tolerance, making a clear statement that tolerance can and should be taught to children on a range of subjects. Fringe Benefits saw a lack of discussion on tolerance with kindergarten and younger kids. But instead of sitting down and accepting the culture they saw, they said, let's do something about it. And that's where their mission comes from. And while the key to change is time, I also believe that change in the theater community comes in waves. A playwright who was doing similar work in the 70s and 80s is named Susan Zader. She was well known for leaving no stone unturned content-wise. And instead of meeting scorn and discouragement for the work she was doing, she met praise and admiration that the work she was exposing to young people was healthy and important. But even though she is well recognized as one of the most influential American TYA playwrights, her work is not as frequently put on anymore. I see Fringe Benefits' work as the next wave of that change. But in order to create a sustained shift in how TYA is presented to children, there needs to be constant action instead of just pockets of it. While I also think that the key to change is time, I think that it's important to think about the numbers and exposing as many different people to TYA's messages as possible. Between 1999, when Cootie Shots was created, and around 2002, there were 150 productions of Cootie Shots throughout California where it was created. Now that may not sound like a large number for 3 years worth of time, but in that time, Fringe Benefits managed to reach over 30,000 kids and adults. That's 30,000 different people with 30,000 different stories. If each of those audience members could go into the theater and see something that they identify with and can learn from, then those are 30,000 more well-rounded, constructive members of society. And the best part is how many of those voices are from the generations of tomorrow. So while I think that TYA is actively working on diversifying their audience base, so too are they always working on creating more constructive subject matter. So much is often left out of the narrative of what's exposed to young people. Especially today, when so many people are regularly silenced for their beliefs, whether it be a matter of gender or sexuality or even religion, children deserve to know how to talk about the issues that they're hearing about. And sometimes, but not always, children can be subject to a filtration of ideas, such as areas of the country that offer abstinence-only sexual education. Now, this is just one example, but because gender and sexuality topics are being flooded through the headlines en masse nowadays, it's crucial that children be given all of the details and really given a way to form their opinions in a constructive way. Starting them early and giving them all of the tools to succeed is important because children will form their own opinions anyways. And if they aren't given the ways to talk about how they're feeling, then their sources are going to be things like gossip and social media and outlets that may only provide one side of the story. Now, I'm not saying that children who don't learn taboo topics early will turn out to be bad people. What I'm saying is only good things can come from starting them young and putting that idea of endless possibilities back into the narrative. I have never liked to play by the rules. Whether it was never wanting to color inside the lines, or never liking to use my indoor voice, I have never quite liked to do the same things as everybody else. While the spirit has lessened as I've gotten older, I've always tried to keep that spirit in me. See how much power I can work with, what boundaries I can test. And I think that children should be given that same freedom. The freedom to bend the social construct that only adults can talk about the tough issues. The freedom to muster up the courage to speak. Now, you all here today are not the young anymore that TYA targets. So often do you have the same privilege as me at being able to stand up when you have something to say, or process new and interesting subjects through theater should you choose to see it. But what you can do is take more time to talk to young people. Ask them what they're curious about. Ask them questions, because nine times out of 10, they'll give you more than sufficient justification for their feelings. Societies are like buildings. They're only as strong as their foundation. I believe that about any community. Encouraging children now and truly lending an ear can go a long way. Giving that freedom of expression can allow children to truly dream, hopefully ensuring that we create a world that's a little bit brighter with each new voice that arises. Thank you.
Okay, we have a brief break. Please hang around.